Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square, and
Mhm.
welcome to the weekly assignment where executive producer Sam Osterhout and I talk to you about what's coming up on Lincoln Square this week, the latest headlines, and what we can all do to fight back against authoritarianism. Today, our guest is a physician, a researcher, and the former director of the Ohio Department of Health who won the JFK Profile and Courage Award. We're so happy to welcome back Dr. Amy Acton, who is now the Democratic gubernatorial nominee in Ohio. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here.
Great. Well, Dr. Acton, it has been 15 long years since the great state of Ohio had a Democratic governor, since Ted Strickland. Tell us what's going on in this really crucial state in the Midwest? How are people responding to your campaign?
Yeah.
And what kind of a year do you think it's going to be for Democrats there?
Well, thank you. We have such good news to share from Ohio. Yes, we just had our primary night, and it really reflected what I've been seeing on the ground all along. I have been going everywhere in the state of Ohio, quite frankly, places Dems haven't been in a while, listening deeply. And everywhere we've gone, we've seen record crowds of people showing up. It does not know party. Oftentimes it includes people who have never been to anything political before. And everywhere we go, people are exhausted. They're feeling the weight of how expensive everyday life is. So they're definitely feeling the weight of the policies that are happening and its toll on their everyday life. And they're also exhausted of the hate and the chaos, the vitriol. They're tired of being pitted against one another and family members and neighborhoods. And they are longing for us to be public servants again, who actually solve problems instead of making them. So we saw this record turnout on primary night. We learned just recently that we had more votes, and we had already cleared the primary, so we had no opponent. We had more votes than any candidate for governor on either side of the aisle in all of Ohio recorded history. I think it goes back to 1942. And that's what we're seeing everywhere, this movement for change.
Well, your opponent is Vivek Ramaswamy, who briefly ran Doge for President Trump. He's a tech billionaire, and he has been jetting around in his private jets. He has more money than God. How do you compete with that, knowing that it's going to be impossible to raise as much money as him?
Well, we've known all along we're up against a self-funding billionaire plus. But what we recognized very early on is that the people are ready for change. Ohio was always known as the bellwether of the country for many years, right up until the era we're in now with President Trump. The old saying on Meet the Press was, as goes Ohio, so goes the nation. That's actually what I think we are going to see. I think Ohio is ground zero of this fight. It's no longer about Democrat or Republican or independent. It is about extreme wealth, power, special interest, and ideology being funneled through playbooks into states, particularly state houses. And quite frankly, most of us don't always pay attention. We pay attention to federal. We know what's going on locally. But it is the black box of these state houses where all the bad stuff has been happening. You add a supermajority, you add some gerrymandering, and that is what we have in Ohio. But where I grew up in Ohio was Youngstown, Ohio, the stuff of Bruce Springsteen songs. And, we growing up did not know what party anyone was. We knew maybe what union they belonged to. It's a steel town, We knew what food you made from the country you came from. And you just had the sense of people would have your back. Youngstown, like all of Ohio, went twice for Obama. Then they went Trump. And now people are ready for change because they are struggling to afford to live in a state that was always known for its affordability. I'm running for governor because people in this state are struggling. They're doing everything right. And unlike my opponent who says we are, struggling because we're lazy and mediocre and not working hard enough, famously got kicked out of Doge for saying those words, something he helped make. I don't know how you do that. He says affordability is just a buzzword that people are using. That is not the Ohioans I meet. People are doing everything right, and they just can't make it all work. The math doesn't add up. And so that's what I think. We're seeing a movement of people. We actually have outraised. We've set records every single quarter. And I'm a doctor, not a lifelong politician. So when I entered this race, we had no war chest, nothing. And we've outraised every Democratic candidate. This last quarter, we outraised Mr. Ramaswamy. And we did so with an average gift of $29. We crashed our Secretary of State website because it couldn't take this many people giving. And 95% of our gifts were under $100. So this is a movement of people exhausted by this, and they're longing for good public servants again.
Yeah, you talk about the exhaustion that I think so many of us feel. And Vivek really, I think, embodies the chaos of this administration to a large degree. What are you hearing on the ground from both sides about that? I mean, he really is a culture warrior, and he's a billionaire who represents, anyone who has $1 billion clearly doesn't understand affordability. You might think it's a soundbite.
I think it's uniquely him. I think we have known beneficent people and people who do long to be public servants. It is very clear, I think, to Ohioans that my opponent isn't just out of touch. I mean, we joke, we have a meme here in Ohio that he literally flies in like an Air Force One, which is, I think, how he ran out of all his money and had to self-fund himself after we outraised him. He wrote a check for $25 million, obviously. He's always going to be able to do that. But he flies from places like, Columbus to Cincinnati or to Akron in a jet. And we've famously been going around in my old Jeep Wrangler, listening to people every step of the way. But I keep saying he's not just out of touch. He's out for himself. And quite frankly, he is a danger to Ohio. And he's a danger to this country because we all know his sights are just to sort of use Ohio as a stepping stone to try to run for president again. When you love Ohio as I do, and I'm an Ohio girl through and through, we talk about my childhood. I grew up in Youngstown, very rough childhood, frequent flyer in children's services, a lot of abuse and neglect. So I know, what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to not have the heat on. I lived in a tent in the middle of winter as a kid. It is something that I've been fighting for. I'm 60 years old, and my entire profession and the type of doctor I am is about community health and well-being, state's health, nation's health. And I've been solving problems of Ohio my whole life. Obviously, in COVID, I ran, our response alongside a Republican governor, Governor Mike DeWine. We are a leader in the nation on that. When you love Ohio, you don't move your business to Texas right before running for a governor. You don't make your money doing pump and dump schemes at the affordability of people and pensions. You don't say things like Medicaid and Medicare are mistakes when we have rural hospitals collapsing. We have people going an hour and 15 minutes now to deliver a baby. We have babies being born roadside in Ohio. You don't say that affording everyday life from housing to childcare to your electric bill to property taxes is a buzzword when everyone I meet is really talking about just how are they going to make it to the next thing. And this is everyday Ohioans struggling, our kids struggling to be able to afford the things of everyday life that we all long for. So my opponent just is frankly out of touch.
Yeah, and I know your background, which you talked about, is such a contrast to his. And, you had to work your way through college and medical school. And right now, there are a lot of parents out there that are looking at
Yeah.
high gas prices and healthcare premiums, and the idea of being able to afford college for their kids is slipping
Right.
out of reach. And yet you have your opponent, Ramaswamy, and Donald Trump, who keep talking about affordability as a scam. What are you hearing on the campaign trail from Ohioans about that?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to pointing out a lifetime and a career of things that look very scammy to me. You know, when you run a business where your mom does the phase 3 drug trials on an Alzheimer's drug and pump it up and then dump it, to me, that's the misuse of the word scam. I think that people are working harder than they ever have. It does not add up. One of the things that my opponent has said, amongst the many things he says that sort of stun not just Ohioans, but quite frankly, our business community and other entities, is he says things like that college, our community colleges and universities need consolidated. He wants to give a complete elimination of income tax. We're already very, very low in Ohio. The Republican governor has said we don't need to lower it anymore. He says reckless things like just eliminate all property taxes. Like basically he would end our state budget when that pays for our schools and our public safety officers, first responders, mental health, disabilities, on and on. It's reckless. It's clear he doesn't understand what it means to lead what I've been trained to lead and have led and worked with 5 different governors in various ways over my career. He just doesn't understand it. When he said the remarks, he wanted to consolidate our colleges, all I could think was our Republican governor way back, Governor Rhodes, was the person who made these colleges within reach of the citizens. I was able to go to an accelerated BSMD program at Youngstown State University, but it was a consortium between Kent State, Akron, and Youngstown. They built 1 med school instead of 3 med schools. And I was able to work 3 jobs and commute and be able to turn my life around and work hard and have it pay off. That was the dream of doing this. And so he has sort of recklessly said, in order to give more tax breaks to people at $1 million plus, he was going to get rid of these things that, 1 in 8 jobs at Ohio are in communities. It's the #1 engine in many communities. So it is these policies that just show Ohioans that he doesn't understand what it is like. And I know people are ready for change.
My friend Mike Morley grew up in Youngstown. He was a Democrat. Yeah. And he has so much love for that town. I think it's hard for a lot of us to understand Youngstown. I know you only have a couple of minutes.
Oh, thank you.
Like everyone who comes from Youngstown loves Youngstown.
Yeah.
What is it about Youngstown?
I have a theory life originated there in the Mahoning River Valley, but crawled out. My grandfather came here from the old country to escape persecution. And the best jobs when the streets were paved with gold, remember hearing that in Europe a lot, and left everything behind and lost relatives. He came to the steel mills. He could get a good paying job. You could have a middle-class way of life, 2 cars, food, a great pension. And that allowed the next generations. It's what we all dream, the American dream. And Youngstown was that kind of city in the heyday. And obviously we know it collapsed when steel collapsed on the famous Black Friday. But one of the things I learned there, when I told you that we didn't care where you came from, there was a sense of justice growing up, of fairness. You didn't pick on a kid who was smaller than you, or you were going to get picked on. There's just a street sense. It's funny, Ed O'Neill, who did Married with Children and Modern Family, the actor, he and I grew up on the exact same streets. And so we talk about this a lot. I feel very grateful that I learned that public service and how we all work together, something I've done my entire career. I've always had to work with people on both sides of the aisle to solve the wicked hard problems. And I think this duty almost, this sense of fairness is just deep in me. So I hope that's what your friend carried away as I did. And the thing is, we're a very independent thinking state. People see Ohio as red. The truth is we are slightly pink. We are mostly independent. But what we want for and long for is to end this corruption. I'm fighting to make Ohio affordable again for every Ohioan and a great quality of life. I'm fighting to end a very broken, very corrupt state house. You mentioned that I received a profile on courage, honor of a lifetime, Carolyn Kennedy and her son Jack Calling. Profiles in Courage is about not looking the other way. This is the big theme of my childhood. I remember on Youngstown, a couple who would pull my brother and I up on their front porch and feed us breakfast because they knew we were hungry. Mm-hmm. I am refusing to look the other way. Ohioans, that's what I'm asking of Ohioans. We must join together and link arms, refuse to look the other way in this moment. And we're going to tell Mr. Ramaswamy in November, you cannot buy this state. You can't buy Ohio, and you can't buy us. That is what we're seeing. It does not know party. People want good people. I stood up to a person who did the largest scandal in Ohio's history. He wanted orders during COVID that frankly would have killed people. I couldn't sign it, but I kept advising the governor, Republican governor, but I didn't sign those orders. And 2 weeks later, he was arrested in a $60 million bribe scheme. Largest in the country, really. And so we are living in a moment where, no one's coming to save us but us. But if enough of us realize the power of the people again, which is what we're seeing, we are winning. We are neck and neck or ahead in every single poll in this race. Again, lifetime of being a public servant, trained to run all of government, ran it all in COVID. I've worked with both sides of the aisle, but my last election was in high school. And we are doing this because the people are ready for change. We are setting records in fundraising, but we could use everyone's help out there. Please come learn more about this campaign. actonforgovernor.com. It is about when enough of us push back, and when Ohio goes, so goes the nation. So this is a vital, vital race. Ohio is the flip opportunity of governor's races. actonforgovernor.com. Love to have you be a part of this so that we can beat these special interests, corruption, and really probably one of the best bad guys in the country. So, and when we do that in Ohio, and we're going to go back after, we're going to end our supermajority this time, get a veto back. We're going to turn around and end gerrymandering in Ohio in 27. And then together we're going to really build back the kind of state we all deserve.
Dr. Acton, thank you for taking time. And I hope that both you and your running mate, David Pepper, old friend of Lincoln Square, will definitely come back and talk with us about your campaign.
Thank you. Please do. David Pepper, the Laboratories of Autocracy, all about this kind of corruption, and the best enemy of corruption I could have is a partner. So thank you.
We're big fans.
Yeah. Thank you both. Be well, everyone.
Thanks. Oh, that was great.
It was. Well, Sam, it was just Mother's Day, and I know you were spending time with your family. I was spending time with mine. But our First Lady, Melania Trump, had a couple big Mother's Day splashes, I guess, that she made. She wrote a very interesting op-ed for Jeff Bezos's Washington Post editorial page, where basically she, was telling us that we have to just say no to feminism, and we've got to put our families first above careers. Women can't have it all. She wants to make trad wives great again. And, it was largely ridiculed. And frankly, I don't know how many people really read the Washington Post editorial page at this point, because, when you're editorializing things like, hey, it was cool that we killed off USAID, that literally has resulted in the deaths of millions of poor children around the globe. It's very difficult to take that seriously. So we had that, but then there was also a speech for Mother's Day that she gave that definitely raised some eyebrows. So let's play that.
May you find enduring strength as your loved one serves in defense of our freedom. Most know my husband as the strong commander-in-chief, but his empathy transcends the role and shape a caring leader who constantly remembers each and every American soldier is someone's child. Distinguished guests.
So I think we have to point out the fact that most of these press conferences at the White House are just filled with sycophants and just canned laughter all over the place, but in the right places, not like this, where even Trump's biggest fans thought it was hilarious, the idea that this man would have empathy. So that was quite a moment to witness.
Look, I think so many of these moments embody the entire experiment. And, a candidate like Vivek Ramaswamy also is just so out of touch, in the same way that Trump is out of touch, in the same way that Melania is very out of touch. Like, my wife would never deign to get mothering advice or parenting advice or job advice or any kind of advice from Melania Trump, because they just are not the same. And I think it is one of those things that's, Trump he says the economy is great. It's not, right? He says gas prices are going down, or they're great. Jobs are firing back. None of that is true. And Melania embodies that sort of like bubble blindness.
Yeah.
Right. You are in your own ass and you cannot see the light outside of it.
You have gold toilets. You
were a statue of yourself, for fuck's sake. Come on.
We're not the same. And so when millions of women are struggling out there just to make sure that their kids can afford to go to the doctor, listening to our first lady just dripping in diamonds, who had a bribe film made about her for Jeff Bezos. What does she have to tell us about the struggles of parenthood? Come on.
So here's what my question for you is, that kind of stuff is so infuriating, right? Being spoken down to, and there are billionaires who say like, well, maybe I don't pay the tax rate that you pay, but my 2% tax rate is more than you'll make in your lifetime. That's not the brag that, you know what I mean? It's not like, that doesn't make me feel better, right? Like all of these things. Do you think that that's going to have any or add to the electoral impact in November for Democrats? Do you think people are waking up to this bullshit?
If you look at the polls, it's been a consistent story for months upon months. I know every week we've got Rick Wilson and Andrew Wilson that break it down for you on Behind the Numbers on Friday mornings. And people are not buying what this president is selling. And I just think that it's so condescending to sit there and say affordability is a hoax when gas just hit $4.55 a gallon. Trying to sell us on this idea that gas prices are going down. Most of us are seeing gas above $5 when we, hit the gas station these days. That's incredibly high.
It is. And I also wonder this, if Trump isn't on the ticket in 28, he's got a sort of smarmy, I don't know, cartoonishness that MAGA loves, right?
Right.
They're like, yeah, he's a billionaire, but he's also a total sleazebag, and that makes it all totally fine. And he knows he's a sleazebag, and we know he's a sleazebag, and it's the joke. And I think that, you know, when people started laughing when Melania said he was known as being empathetic, he was in on that joke too. He was like, oh yeah, totally. That's hilarious because I'm not empathetic
part
at all.
of Trump's charm, and it chokes in my throat to say that, but you know, the man won election twice. People have bought into him, you know, enough, is that he's an asshole. That's the whole thing. So the idea that like he gives a shit about anyone besides himself, that's the joke.
That's the joke. But it's not going to be the joke with somebody like JD Vance, right?
No, because he's very unlikable.
Yeah. So when he pretends to be an asshole, everyone's just like,
I don't think
you're an
asshole.
No. When I say pretends, I mean when he cops to it in the same way that Trump does. It's not. It's going to be weird.
He's, you know,
he's a weird little man.
It's off-putting. You know, and sadly, it looks to me that Marco Rubio seems to have the routine down a lot better than him. You know, he was yucking it up in the press room last week, and people seem to be responding similarly to when Trump used to go up there, you know, back in the day when he knew where he was.
Yeah, right. I think, you know, that's the thing about Marco is he's been a politician for a very long time. And he, at, you know, a bare minimum, he's a better, I think, retail politician than JD Vance. You know, he can shake hands and he can appear to have a sense of empathy and, you know, and hold a coherent thought and all of those kinds of things. I think it's going to be interesting in 28.
Yeah. Well, why don't we talk a little bit more about where we're at with the war in Iran? And I see again that Trump officials made their rounds on the Sunday shows to tell us once again how we should be grateful about, you know, gas prices being so unbelievably high. I think we have a clip of that.
We're going to end the nuclear program.
But gas prices have not peaked at this point.
I don't know the future of gas prices.
Well, they climbed over the past week. We're also hearing from the airline lobby. Ticket prices aren't going to go down in the summer or the fall. Saudi Aramco's CEO said reopening routes is not the same as normalizing a market deprived of 1 billion barrels of oil. None of these problems are going to end quickly.
Ending the Iran nuclear program is a tough challenge, as you're rightfully pointing out. Is there short-term dislocation from that? Absolutely. But we need to make that trade-off, or we have a long-term threat to peace in the region, long-term threat to energy supplies, long-term threat to Americans.
So if you're late paying your rent this month, you can be like, hey, it's just a short-term dislocation. We got to do it because Iran could have nukes in 10 years. Sorry, I can't pay.
I mean, look, I think that I think Democrats need, and everyone, for the security of the world, really need to use Occam's razor on this. We've lost this war. And I think the sooner that we, and that Trump, and I think ultimately his options are diminishing very rapidly. He didn't have very many options to begin with. But among the best case scenarios for him is to just walk away.
Right. And like he wants to, but as he was tweeting through this over the weekend, you know, he's like, yeah, but you're not making me look good in this process. So he keeps engaging. And of course, you've got Bibi Netanyahu, who still wants to keep the war going. Mm-hmm. And so he does not know a way to get out of this in a way that he can say, look how big and strong I am and look what I did to this nation, because Iran is not willing to play along like that. They don't need to. They control the Strait of Hormuz.
And they will for the foreseeable future. There's no strategic reason for them to give up that control. And there's no strategic reason for them to cede that in negotiations. They have it. It's theirs. I think, you know, you mentioned Trump can't figure out a way to leave and look strong because there is actually no way. If let's say he does a big attack as a sort of exit, he's like, let's blow a bunch of stuff up and then we'll claim victory. Iran has a say in that.
Right.
Iran then threatens, water supply, food supply, energy supply. They hit their neighbors.
Right.
War, right. Iran is not letting him go. They will not. The only way Iran allows him out is for him to walk away with no victory at all.
Yeah.
Until he sees that, we will be there. We'll be there for the foreseeable future.
Right. So we have a couple problems because of this Iran war. We have, the military and foreign policy problems that are self-inflicted. And then we have the political problem for Trump with a war that is extremely unpopular, and it has caused gas prices and other prices to rise. And so now you're seeing Trump try and at least take the reins on that part of it, because in spite of the fact that the right-wing Supreme Court handed Republicans such a gift on gerrymandering with their Calais decision, everyone can see the polls that Republicans are in serious trouble for this midterm election. And if gas prices stay at $4.55 a gallon, and they are projected to average above $5 very soon in the heart of summer travel season, that's just a death knell for the party in power, and that would be the Republicans. And so now you're hearing all sorts of scams, to use Dr. Amy Acton's words, like, let's suspend the federal gas tax. Another part of that interview with Energy Secretary Chris White was him, floating that idea, because they're so desperate to try and save as many seats in the House as possible with whatever kind of snake oil that they can sell. But at the end of the day, even if you do that, you are still looking at gas prices being far higher than when Trump took office. And that's just another problem that he is struggling to solve.
Well, and I think that there's always a case for a politician who's in office, Democrat or Republican, to do a very short-term fix to juice the economy or to juice numbers, or right? Like, remember Donald Trump sending us all checks in the first round,
right before the 2020 election.
Yeah, and so those short-term juice events have long-term consequences. But I would argue that at this point, removing the gas tax, for example, is a short-term solution that's actually not a solution even in the short term, right? And it only immediately causes problems. And if you look at the Iran war writ large, that was a solution in search of a problem that didn't exist. And that solution created the problem that currently exists. Like, it was an immediate failure. And the administration, including him and including, Wright and all of these people, have no ability to look at second order or third order effects of their choices or of their policies. I don't know that they have the ability to see the immediate or first order effects, like the instant effects. What if we bomb Iran?
Yeah.
Everyone, you could have seen it and been like, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Trump is so good at saying, like, only I, could do this. Everybody else was too chicken. No, everybody else saw Iran. They saw that they were a problem. Nobody liked that regime in power. But that's why the Obama administration struck the deal on nuclear material that worked, because that was the best plan, rather than going in and dropping bombs on a big power in the region that we knew would go after our allies in the region, everything that has happened with Trump's war. And so, that's great. You did something that nobody else did. And now gas prices are high, and now you don't know how to get out. And now our allies are suffering very much in the region. And they've really, thrown the Middle East into chaos. You have countries leaving OPEC. You have the price of fertilizer going up, which means food prices will be going up. You barely have any ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, which is such a critical waterway for all international trade. I mean, this is not an easy problem to solve. And so this is really the wrong president to have in office for such a Gordian knot.
Yeah, the arc reactor. Your comments, by the way, arc reactor. I've been keeping an eye on them all day. The correct take is only Trump was stupid enough to try this, and I think Trump. I think that's exactly right, and I think it goes a little deeper than that. That Trump equates strength with rashness, right? With gut decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not strength. That is actual stupidity.
Yeah,
it's actually laziness.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to the Frank Figliuzzi show this week because he will have on former CIA Director John Brennan. And those two men are able to look at the past. They're able to look at the future and, bring that kind of sophisticated analysis that the Trump administration has absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, the man, like the Frank Figliuzzi show is so good, and I watch, but I wish you all could just be in the green room sometimes because that guy has been in so many rooms and knows so much. And to watch him and John Brennan on Wednesday, it's going to be like a masterclass.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, Frank was the assistant director for the FBI, and Brennan comes from running the CIA. Sometimes those agencies are in competition with one another. But at this point, I mean, we have such dysfunction in our intelligence agencies. I'm sure that they wish that it was back to those days instead of dealing with just severe threat after severe threat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also really looking forward to Brian Datesman, who we do from The Intellectualists, who we do a sort of collab show with called The History of the Present, has Nicholas Kristof that will be airing on Saturday. And you have Justin Wolfers on Tuesday.
I do. Yeah. So Nicholas Kristof, you probably remember, longtime New York Times columnist, ran for governor actually in Oregon briefly. That should be just a fascinating conversation. We'll have that over the weekend for you. And Justin Wolfers is a University of Michigan economist. He's now on Substack. And so you can find him there. You can find him on YouTube, which is great because he really breaks down economic issues so well, and is just a great person to talk to in this moment, not just about the affordability crisis, but we're soon to have a new Fed chairman and what that will mean. So that will be tomorrow. Really looking forward to having him back.
Yeah, that's going to be good. It's a good week for our guests and for our shows.
Yeah, coming up today, we have a couple good ones too. We've got Michelangelo Signorelli from SiriusXM will be on with Joe Sudbay, also from SiriusXM. They're going to talk about gerrymandering and the 2026 elections and civil rights. That will be a great conversation. We always love when those guys stop by. So looking forward to that. That will be on just in about 20 minutes, right, Sam?
20 minutes and 30 seconds.
There we go.
As I understand it.
And later on today, we have on Tennessee Representative Gloria Johnson. And I think we have just a fabulous clip of hers. You probably saw last week down in Alabama and in Tennessee, the state legislatures wasted absolutely no time in trying to draw these ridiculous maps where most of the state has zero representation. Gloria Johnson has been fighting back against racism and the thuggish majority in the Tennessee legislature of Republicans for years. Let's listen to her now.
Lie. We do not have to be here. We're costing our counties a fortune. We are making a mockery of this body and of this state. We are the shame of the nation and the shame of this state. We are here to take away the voices of black voters and the people of Memphis, to crack their districts and dilute their voices. You should be ashamed, but guess what? I know that you're not. This is not a special session. This is a white power rally and a white power grab. That is what this is. And you can deny it all you want, but the people in this state know better. They don't want partisan gerrymandering. They don't want gerrymandering by race. They don't want any of it. We have the ability to have independent redistricting.
This will be such a good conversation with her. Really looking forward to that coming up this afternoon.
Yeah, that's been making the rounds, and I'm really here for it. It's this is a massive deal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, your weekly assignment this week is something that no doubt has come close to your community. You have been seeing all across the country that these data centers have been cropping up, and they've been driving up your electric bills. They've been driving up your water bills. And a lot of times there's a really secretive process behind them. And so, you know, a lot of times we will do a call to action at the federal level, but so much is going on at the state level. That's why we're talking to people like Amy Acton and Gloria Johnson. If you go ahead and hit this QR code, we will help you get in touch with your state officials about these projects so that you know exactly what kind of money is being spent. What's the jobs impact of all of this? What's the environmental impact? Are people rushing into this and not telling you these critical answers? So go ahead and click on that QR code. Really looking forward to doing more beyond just what's going on in Washington, but trying to help you get in touch with the people at this, in your state governments, in your local governments, about issues like this and the ICE centers that are cropping up all over the place, because these are such crucial issues, and we're so happy to be able to fight alongside you.
Yeah, this whole project of MAGA is to take your control over your own community away. And not just that, but, Andrew Watkins and I talk about how they want to take control over your own family or your own personal decisions away. We have to start taking ground back. And this is a part of that.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you tuning in for the weekly assignment, as always. This was a great conversation with Amy Acton at the top. If you missed it, take a look for this to hit your inbox. The only way for that to happen, though, is for you to subscribe to Lincoln Square. So if you don't, you can subscribe for free. If you want to support our work, you can always become a paid subscriber. But we're just happy to have you here. So thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Susan.